Aloha everyone, I'm Dr. BethAnne. I am an author, intuitive psychologist, and an empath, and I craft content for highly sensitive spiritual souls. We have been talking about the theme of self-acceptance for the month of September. It's almost over. This is my last September video, and I am a teacher on intuitive living, and the way that I often make these videos is very intuitively. I might make some notes beforehand, but a lot of times I'll just sit down and feel what I intuitively feel called to teach. And I couldn't think of a topic for this video, and all of a sudden the rain started pouring outside, and I had like a deck of tarot cards. And something I do as an intuitive practice is I'll see if a card will flip out and if it will spark an idea in me. It's actually a really fun way to grow your intuition, is to use cards that way and then write about it. But the rain was coming down, and the card that popped out was storm warning. And I thought, well, that's fun. How can I talk about self-acceptance with storm warning? And I want to talk about how do we accept ourselves when we are in the storms of life, because I feel like that's when it's the hardest. Some of that comes from the fact that as human beings, we have a tendency to blame ourselves when things go wrong. There's this spiritual misconception that if things are going wrong in your life, like you're somehow not in alignment and you're not in flow. And I don't know where that came from. I think sometimes we just hear things so much that we start to believe them. And I also think that sometimes when we are aligned, things flow really easily. So what happens in our human brains is we think, well, if they're not flowing, I must not be in alignment with myself. But a lot of times, Spirit will bring a good clearing or a good cleansing into our life. We go through seasons that feel like storms. They uproot everything. The rain pounds and it cleanses everything. It washes things away. Our belief systems and our ideals, a lot of it can be like really uprooted. Lightning strikes and we have these sudden changes that happen. And we're not doing anything wrong. We're just not doing anything wrong. It is simply part of the divine plan and part of our own soul's divine plan for how growth is going to be brought about. And during those times, I think it's really important that we are able to practice self-acceptance. And something that's really helpful for me during those times is I like to think of them as exercises in being fully human. Because when I'm in a good place in life, it's much easier to access my spiritual tools and to feel like I'm flowing through life with grace and ease. Isn't that a great feeling? You know, when you just feel really plugged in, you feel very zen, very inner peace. And when you're in a storm in your life, sometimes it's just not possible. Or unless you're extremely well practiced at meditation, it's very challenging to stay in a space of inner peace. And those are times in our life where we really deal with the messy stuff. We deal with self-doubt, we deal with feeling angry, we deal with feeling chaotic, we deal with doing the best we can and realizing our best fell like so far short of like what we wish we could have done and how we wish we could have responded. And those are times where we are just learning about what it is to be a true human. We're learning the full spectrum of emotions. We are learning how to be messy. We are learning that that messy part of ourselves isn't a reflection of like the divinity of our soul. It's just a reflection of the condition of being human, and that we're hardwired to feel the full spectrum of emotions. And so we're going to, particularly when the storm comes, and we're going to feel disorganized and chaotic and all of that stuff. You haven't done anything wrong. So that's the perspective I want to hand to you today. Storms are times where we get to experience what it is to be fully human. And I feel like if we can introduce that line of thinking into our consciousness, it makes it a little bit easier to weather them. And instead of saying, like, what have I done wrong? I don't feel like I'm my spiritual self right now. I feel so messy. We're better able to say, you're just learning what it is to be human. Because a storm always ends. It's always more clean and cleared out when we come on the other side. That's usually when the spiritual clarity comes and we realize that so much more inner work happened and so much more transformed in us than we were even aware of, because we couldn't quite see through the human mess. And part of loving ourselves is loving all of us and accepting all of us, not just the pretty, shiny, clear parts, but the parts too that are muddy and rainy and sticky. They are all equally lovable in the eyes of the universe, in the eyes of spirit, and in the eyes of your soul. There's no better than or worse than. So our challenge is to learn to see through our heart eyes, to see through our soul eyes, and see that we're in the storm and we feel messy about it. That doesn't change anything about like how innately lovable we are, and that we're divine beings who come from love, and that is the truth of who we are, and that the external feelings is just a reflection sometimes of circumstances and not a reflection of the truth of our soul. So I appreciate your presence. If you are enjoying my content, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube, and you can find out more about me on my website, BethAnneKW.com. Have a beautiful day, and the rain just ended. The roosters are out. I hear birds chirping, so it feels like a little bit of sunlight in this video with sunlight and clarity. All right, aloha and love, everyone.